The plot thickens in Rachel Reeves' renting fiasco as the estate agents have now apologised for an oversight. And it goes from bad to worse as rumour has it that she may well be about to break a manifesto promise and raise income tax by 2p. Do you have any confidence in the Chancellor? And here we go again, the one in, one out scheme. Migrants sent back to France under the deal are already trying to return to the UK because, well, the French won't provide housing, but we will. Yes, that's the reality of the one in, one out policy, deported on Monday, back on Friday. And another government U-turn as Labour rolls back on its decision to stop Gazan students from bringing dependents with them. I'm not saying they shouldn't be helped, but should our generosity extend to their family members as well? And is it time to scrap the Motability scheme? Well, Reform MP Lee Anderson has a suggestion. Bring back the Inver car. What do you make of that? Right, let's cross live now to Westminster to get the latest from our political editor, Christopher Hope. Christopher, we've had quite a bit of breaking news in. What has developed? What more can you tell us?
Well, as you can see behind me, night has fallen on Westminster, and it appears that we are drawing a line under this 24 hours of flurry about Rachel Reeves and her private arrangements to lease out her family home in Dulwich. You remember how the Daily Mail put on their front page last night the revelations that she hadn't got a correct licence to let out that property since she started letting it in July 2024, when she moved, of course, into number 11 Downing Street as the Chancellor. It now turns out, while the Chancellor was cleared last night by Laurie Magnus, who is the ethics czar for the Prime Minister, and an apology elicited from Rachel Reeves, there's a huge twist this afternoon in the afternoon briefing with the PM's deputy official spokesman, who told us that new emails had come to light. They'd been submitted by Rachel Reeves to Laurie Magnus and the Prime Minister to review, and we weren't sure where that would go, but the PM did have full confidence in Rachel Reeves. You're seeing now on screen those emails. They've dropped in the past 10 minutes. They've been redacted, blacked out, I should say, to remove any personal indicators. And what they show to us is this, that Rachel Reeves said in a letter to Keir Starmer, I'm reading now, having just received it, that her husband, Nick Joycey, who's a senior civil servant, had found the correspondence confirming that on July 17th, 2024, the letting agent that they used in Dulwich had said to Nick Joycey that a selected licence would be required, and agreed that the agency would apply for licence on their behalf. That's the crucial point, on their behalf, and that means that it was down to the agent to apply. They didn't apply, it seems. We've seen a separate statement from the agent later on today, and therefore, and we're told because of a member of staff of the agency left, that application was never made. So it looks like the Chancellor there is off the hook. A very difficult and damaging 24 hours, I think, for her, because it does show that she, for whatever reason, it is down to the landlord to apply for the correct licensing. It didn't happen. Of course, she can reasonably blame the estate agency, but she didn't check up on that, and she probably should have done. So it's on her, but it looks like she's off the hook for now.
All right, Christopher Hope, thank you very much.
Using the internet without a VPN, a virtual private network, is a bit like taking to the road without car insurance. All it takes is one unlucky moment to cost you a lot of cash. This video's sponsor is Private Internet Access. They are the VPN to help keep you safe. Click the link in the description below to find out why over 30 million people have downloaded PIA to protect themselves online. A virtual private network is an app that hides your IP address and helps keep your data private. When you're browsing the internet at home, you give up a large amount of data to businesses, to shops, and indeed to social media giants too. Hackers have the ability to steal your personal data with ease, including sensitive information such as passwords, keystrokes, and even your personal photos. Private Internet Access helps protect your personal data by encrypting your internet connection to keep your data out of the hands of cybercriminals. And it's not just hackers either to be concerned about. Information can be censored too. When Canada passed their C18 bill, social media giants decided to ban news content on their platforms. But PIA can protect your ability to consume the news and content you love. Private internet access is available for Windows users, Mac OS, Android, Linux, iOS, and you can use one PIA subscription to protect an unlimited amount of devices. And we've got a huge GB News discount for you too. Click the link in this video's description and you'll get a massive 83% off PIA. That's under £2 a month, the price of a coffee, and you'll get an extra 4 months completely free on top. Also, there's a 30-day money-back guarantee too. Visit piavpn.com/GB News to start protecting yourself digitally today.
All right, so what are your thoughts? gbnews.com/your say. Were you slightly hoping that perhaps it was on her and that she was at fault? Were you hoping to get rid of the Chancellor? Could that have been the straw that broke the camel's back? Or does it kind of demonstrate how difficult it is for landlords and, of course, even those who are agents who should know better for all these different laws that are coming in? Well, let's get the thoughts of my panel, Kelvin MacKenzie and also Stuart Fawcett. Kelvin, I'll start with you.
Well, I'm a landlord myself. So I know that you have, and thanks mainly to the socialist mob, that there is a cascade of issues that you face, and in the end of the day, it is down to you. So the fact that this was a hopeless estate agent, that's one shoe to drop. The other shoe to drop is that, unfortunately, she or a husband or somebody in the family has to keep track of what is happening, and so there's all kinds of aspects. You've got to make sure your gas is right, and you've got to make the terms are right on your things, and now you've got to have licences according to Labour-run Southwark Council, and also I think Labour-run Leeds Council, which of course is 10 days ago. She was congratulating them for introducing the licence. So these are responsibilities. Now, I totally accept that you're a busy person. I mean, she's spending every waking hour trying to work out ways of making us poorer. So it's not easy for her, but however, it's her responsibility, as it would be mine. And so she would normally, were it not for a Labour-run council, I think, be in some degree of difficulty on how much of a quotes fine, unquotes, or criminal action might be taken against her, but that's not going to happen from anybody who knows Labour-run Southwark Council, knowing that, honestly, if you think the current Labour set up in Parliament is left, have a look at Southwark, which is a shocking pit of lefty.
Oh, what about Ilford South? I'm thinking of Jazz Athwell, the biggest landlord in the Commons, who had 15 properties. He introduced a licensing scheme when he was a councillor, and it turned out that 7 out of his 15 properties were not, he hadn't paid the licence for, and he was exposed to being a very dodgy landlord on Panorama, and nothing happened to him at all. He's still, and maybe he's fixed things up, but, he was on Panorama because of how bad his properties were. Stuart, what are your thoughts on all of this?
So, just to come back on your points about properties and selective licensing, I think the reason that those things have been brought into place is because there is a requirement for them. I don't think they came along because every single landlord was perhaps as good as you are, Kelvin.
Quite right, sir.
Making sure that
get my tenants on. They love me. They love me.
And I'm sure that you are the model landlord there, and I don't doubt the integrity in that. But there was evidence.
And one day, when you have enough money, you might become one as well.
Well, we'll have to see if that even gets that far.
Well, you'll have to get rid of Labour first, won't you?
Well, I don't know about that. We'll come on to the economic prospects of different governments in a minute. But in terms of the licences, these are selective licences that are by certain local authorities.
Mostly Labour.
Because there's been, in certain areas, unscrupulous dealings with certain landlords not having houses to a rentable standard, a habitable standard.
Like Jazz Athwell, Labour MP for Ilford.
I'm not arguing with that. There was a whole report on that one. But obviously, on tonight, we are naturally talking about Rachel Reeves renting a property because she obviously now lives in number 11, which there are many people who are very pleased about that. And she naturally rented her property out.
When you say they're very pleased, do you mean they're pleased because she's not living in Dulwich?
Well, there's a lot of people that wanted Rachel Reeves to be the Chancellor, and I'm one of them, which is why I'm here tonight.
I'm glad we found
there's
one,
a large
anyway.
fan club on the panel, but there is at least one.
So you'll be happy if there's a potential of 2p rise in income tax if she's to break a manifesto promise, because that's one of the things that she promised, swore blind, that she wouldn't do.
Well, we'll come back to the situation with Rachel Reeves and a selective licensing.
Well, no, we'll come back to that.
But on this particular case with tax rises, the simple fact is at the moment, we don't know exactly what is going to be in that budget. There is a lot of subjective or argument about what there may and may not be. What we do know is that GDP as a proportion, debt as a proportion of GDP, is the highest it has ever been under any government taking over. When George Osborne took the reins to the Treasury, it was 65%. Now it's 97%. We're in a real tough spot economically. So when I looked at coming on the show earlier, and I thought, crikey, look at what we have here, a Chancellor that actually is taking it on, a really unenviable position. And there were questions being raised about the tenability of her position. I did think, well, who else could do that job? Who else could really take on that challenge with that humility? So when we talk about things like a potential of a 2p tax rise, I do have to look at all the information that's on the table, which is we've had 15 years of real stagnation in our economy that has also been starved of a lot of investment. And actually the decision that this Chancellor has taken is to make investment in the economy, in such things as making greater... So if you had a business, for example, and you were faced with this debt, nearly 100% of the debt you're in,
yes.
Would the situation
First thing they do is cut costs, actually.
Well,
I know because I've run businesses
so
both on the up and the down.
But I know, and I see what you mean, but you can't cut costs all the way to growth. The Conservatives will often say you can't cut your way to growth, and I don't disagree with that.
But they haven't cut anything. They haven't even managed to cut welfare, despite their massive Commons majority. So they haven't managed to cut anything, Kelvin.
They can't get... let's be honest about it. They can't get cut through the collection of lefties in the Labour Party, and you know that, and I don't know how you stand on whether you should cut welfare or not, but they can't do it. So the alternative to that actually is what? Unfortunately, the alternative is actually a tax rise. I have never seen so many kite flying by the Treasury or whoever, or their mates or something like that, or Mr. Bell or whatever, whoever it is. I think that has been enormously damaging. Every 5 seconds, somebody is saying, we're going to tax this, we're going to tax that. The only joy I'm getting out at the moment is having seen... I used to live in Dulwich myself, Court Lane for anybody who lives around that way, and I went to our lanes, paid for by London Borough of Southwark, by the way. And the issue there is that she lives in a 4-bedroomed, rather nice house. I'm in favour of those, right, by the way. The funny thing is, if she's going to introduce a mansion tax, of course, she's going to be one of those that are paying it. So that is the only thing that has cheered me up so far.
But I don't think at any point in her tenure has the Chancellor ever said that she should be excused from the rules.
No, but the idea...
Today, I think the argument is that she's been very
it just cheered me up. I'm sure in your £2 million
there's no
plus
schadenfreude for me, but there is something that I am really worried about, which is tax rises. And the worst tax that I have experienced has been the tax that Liz Truss's budget put on people like me.
Well, I don't think that, honestly, we're past all that.
We're not
It was
past
a
all that.
nightmare. It was a nightmare time.
Absolutely.
And we are nowhere near the nightmare that we face under this woman.
We are still feeling the effects of. Every time you and I spend money, the effect of inflation on everything we spend...
What business did you run?
And also...
Tell me, you said you ran a business. What business did you run?
I run a hospitality and leisure business. So every time that I bought stock, if inflation was going up, it was more expensive. And I had to pass that on to the consumer. If I then wanted to buy anything like an asset, the interest rates at the bank would have been more expensive. I have to pass that on to the consumer. And that was caused by the run on the banks because our credit rating as a country had been absolutely toppled by the decisions that Liz Truss and her Chancellor made.
Do you think this is getting better under this lot, do you?
We've had... Sorry, Nana.
Do you think this is getting better under this?
This is going to be a long turnaround.
No, but
no one has said...
You're not going to get a long turnaround.
Nobody has said we're going to get an overnight change in our economic prospects. But I'll tell you what has happened. The Chancellor, as the Chief Financial Officer of Great Britain, has been going abroad to sell stock. And what she hasn't been doing is...
to beg for money.
Not
She
at all,
went to
but we
China.
need investment.
Let me finish now. She went to China for £600,000 over 5 years. That is nothing. She went to Saudi
You were 6
Arabia.
million.
Well, no, it was 600,000. It wasn't 6 million. It was or maybe 600 million, maybe. But again, that's not actually that much, is it? Let's be fair. Over 5 years.
But it's
And then
better
she
than what we
went
had
to the Middle
before.
East. She's been to the oil-rich countries with the begging bowl as well, which, to be frank, with all their human rights records and the so-called socialist-type leftist ideologues, I'm surprised that would be allowed. Working with China, working with, Saudi and all those kind of oil-rich countries when we're bringing in net zero.
We've got to do business as a country.
China, they've got all the.
Well, let's talk
oil
about
and
the
gas.
Let's talk about the economics.
Well,
Great Britain has to be a much better trading element.
We have
And
to
Great
work
Britain
harder. We
PLC,
have to work harder.
But everyone can take a role in that one. But at the minute, what we need to do that is to get investment, because at the moment, investment is flatlining, and we need to get our economy producing more. Productivity has flatlined. The only way we can get growth in this country and remove and make that ceiling much higher from debt to
get rid of
GDP
Labour.
is growth.
Get rid of Labour would be a help. Yeah, sorry.
Yes.
I don't disagree. We don't work hard enough in our country, right? There's a lot of people walking around saying either they're not very well or they're talking about work-life balance. And I, by the way, blame the bosses in that respect by not setting a leadership role within their companies and always indulging their workforce in some rather bizarre way when they come knocking at the door. South Cambridge comes to mind, which I imagine that Labour actually don't endorse. They don't endorse. Yeah. No, there's a Lib Dem government, a Lib Dem. But we have to work harder and we have to be smarter. And we had the role to ourselves in the 60s and the 70s and perhaps even the 80s, right? And right now, the whole of Asia and the whole of the world outside Western Europe is eating our lunch. We have to do something about it. I don't believe that Rachel Reeves has the answer, but I do fear that whatever happens on November the 26th will be disastrous for our country, as was the same budget last year.